Are your virtual presentations leaving a lasting impression or leaving your audience clicking away? In this episode, webinar mastery expert Jeff Brandeis reveals the secrets of delivering dynamic webinars that not only grab attention, but drive results. Discover how to craft a show-stopping opening act that hooks your audience from the very first moment, and learn to leverage powerful tools like Engage Hub, which I haven't heard of yet, Stream Deck, which I love. I have one on my desk here, and Zoom to foster real-time engagement. Jeff also shares simple yet effective techniques to boost sales, spark meaningful Q&A participation, and leaves audiences not just satisfied, but eager for more. So if you're a coach, business professional, or a trainer, or simply just want to look better and show up better online and have a lasting impact, this episode is your ultimate playbook. So stay tuned.
Welcome to the Lead Machine Growth Show, where you will discover how to tackle your tech, master your message, and design your dream. Paul Guyan, the mastermind behind the Lead Machine, introduces you to trailblazers who inspire you to implement life-changing solutions and systems you can model to nurture your leads and get your offers seen by your ideal clients who will invest in themselves and you. Be sure you visit our website at www.leadmachinegrowthshow.com. While you're there, subscribe to us via your favorite network. Now, tune in and get ready to transform your vision into reality.
Welcome to the Lead Machine Growth Show. I'm Paul Guyan, your host, Lead Machine coach, founder of the Lead Machine Marketing Group and Mastermind, and I'm dedicated to helping you master your tech, tackle your tech, master your message, and design your dream. And whether you're just starting out or you want to take your business to the next level, let's get this conversation started. So today our guest is Jeff Brandeis. Welcome, Jeff.
Thank you, Paul. Great to be here.
I'm going to cover your bio real quick. Jeff is the CEO of Engaging Webinars, a company that specializes in enhancing virtual presentations. With a background in business administration, accounting, finance, and taxation, he has held leadership positions in various organizations, including Brandeis Financial Services and Brandeis Coaching. Through Engaging Webinars, Brandeis offers personalized strategies and practical techniques that create compelling and effective webinars utilizing tools like OBS, Stream Deck, and Zoom. And I'm interested in that OBS part because I know how powerful it can be. He helps clients master presentation tools, increase audience engagement, and enhance their virtual presence. His programs aim to transform virtual presentations by boosting sales, interaction, and attendee satisfaction. Participants learn how to create visually engaging content, discover proven techniques to keep audiences engaged, and communicate effectively to make a lasting impact. So Jeff, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for showing up today. It's a Saturday, which is a great day to have a podcast recording.
Yes, it's great to meet you, Paul, and I'm happy to be here.
Well, thank you. So in your bio and before we started recording, we talked a little bit about your financial background, and obviously you've had your own company like that. But there was something that was a spark that made you go, I'm going to go over here instead. And there's a reason for that, I'm sure. So can you tell us a little bit about that and why engaging webinars?
Engaging webinars really, to me, became my passion, basically, at this point in my life. I have a background and spent 25 years in corporate selling software, doing presentations, leading sales teams. And when, COVID, to be honest, like many of us, we got COVID-sized, as I like to phrase it. So it was kind of, okay, where does Jeff want to be when he grows up again?
Yeah.
I went to the financial aspect of life. Of course, that brought me back to my roots of growing up as an accountant, where I spent some years in CPA firm. And as I was doing that, it was great. Don't get me wrong. And I still do a little bit of that from a financial perspective. But my true passion really was doing the presentations. And as I was attending so many webinars and trying to learn about things, it just clicked on me. There's got to be a better way. There's got to be a more efficient way to get message across and to be able to keep that audience involved, engaged. Because so many of them, 99% of these webinars, they basically all go the same way. And we can get into how that goes also, but so I love presenting engaging webinars. I love talking about the topic because it's just something I think that's truly needed out there for everyone that does a webinar or a virtual presentation.
Totally agree. So we talked about virtual presentations because the COVID era introduced Zoom, and Zoom skyrocketed. And there's a lot of before that, there were a lot of webinar platforms that you could like GoToWebinar and Ever Webinar and just a myriad of things. But we mentioned virtual presentations. So what is the difference? I know a lot of people call a webinar. This could be called a webinar, but it's not. So can you just unpack that a little bit?
Sure. For me, the webinar is really, it's more than a one-on-one situation. You're trying to do maybe it's a sales presentation, maybe it's a product update presentation, maybe even it's an internal employee update meeting where you have several attendees and you're trying to keep those folks happy, engaged. It's just more than just a one-on-one situation.
Okay. And so you talk about the opening act, and I tried to mimic an opening act, and I don't know what I did. I think people got probably bored when I started reading the bio, but it's an interesting bio. So can you tell us about the opening act and how that's so important?
Sure. So there's two parts of an opening act in my mind. The first part is when you click that Zoom link, maybe you get there 5 minutes early and there's nothing going on. Okay. So one of the recommendations I talk about is create a little video about yourself or something about your company. So that begins that engagement right from the start while they're waiting for your webinar or the presentation to actually begin. And then the next part of the opening act is when they actually come into the meeting. And sometimes, I'm not ready to go as a presenter, but I want them in my meeting room. So when they come into my meeting room, I have, say, some webinars, screen showing. I got some music going. I got some things going on in there that kind of begins to get the people to go, this isn't going to be the same webinar 99% of the other people are doing. And then when I'm ready to begin the webinar, I simply click a button and I'm on my screen, ready to go.
And so, is there some flair? Do you pop out of a cake, or does the curtain open? I know you can do all those things.
Yeah, I have a scene where the curtain opens and I am. You have kind of like a transparency look where I'm actually behind my logo and you can see me waving. I'm getting ready. I might go just a couple of minutes and maybe the curtain's open. So we can actually create whatever you envision. Maybe it's not a curtain. Maybe it's a curtain going this way. Maybe you want the curtain, coming up, or however you maybe have other ideas for a staged opening. Or I've seen someone actually climb out of a window. Oh, that was his opening act to kind of get the people's attention.
Yeah, that's fun. So what are the key components that make up an engaging webinar?
An engaging webinar is about getting your audience involved. And, most webinars these days, I was kind of alluding to earlier, they all start the same way. And if I may, hey, welcome, Paul. Glad to have you webinar today. Let me know if you can see my see me okay. I'm going to share my slides in a moment. Do you see my slides? Do you hear me okay? And then they share. And for those of us who might remember Hollywood Squares, remember that game?
Yeah.
The presenter becomes a Hollywood Square, just like everyone else. Okay. They go across the top. Then they go into their slides and they talk and they talk. And they might ask, so where you're from, put it into chat. You have any question? Or into chat. And, yes, that's a part of engaging. But at the end of the day, 99% of the webinars are all done that way. We're different.
Mm-hmm. And so how is it different?
Great question. So, for example, when we ask where you're from and stuff people are putting into chat, let's say Michigan, Ohio, Florida, Aruba, or Europe, we have a globe that is on our screen. A globe begins to circle and puts red dots where the people are actually located.
Oh, I want to know how to do that.
It becomes visual to the audience as opposed to just looking into chat. It's that type of audience engagement, and we'll get more into this as we move along, that makes it engaging. And when I go to my slides, I'm on the left side of my PowerPoint or my Canva, and my slides are on the right. But I'm still in front of my audience. I don't become a box.
Right. Yeah. And that's troubling. And it's nice to have the presenter come in and comment more about the topic and then come back and go on to the next thing. Is that part of what you're talking about?
Yeah. So as you mentioned, I'm using a Stream Deck as one of my tools in my presentations. Another thing that a lot of presenters do, they'll go to a slide and they'll spend 5 minutes on the slide.
Right.
They had 2 bullet points on it. If I know I'm going to talk a little while on the slide, I'll hit my button and now I go back to full screen.
Uh-huh.
You don't need to keep that slide up there for people to stare at, honestly, for those 5 minutes while you're talking. And then when I go back to my PowerPoint, click another button, back on my side-by-side view, so to speak, and I'm advancing my slide. I'm not touching a mouse, I'm not touching my keyboard. Everything I control during my presentation is through my Stream Deck.
Right. And we can get into those tools in a few minutes. Yeah. Don't you have to, I'm a tech guy, so for 40 years. So, okay. So how does this all work? Don't you have to create your PowerPoint? If you have slides, you have to format them differently so that they show up in a way that, they're seeable or no? You have to do anything special?
Would be one of the things we take folks through as well is how to create, dynamic, really entertaining slides. But no, you prepare your slides as you normally would. There's nothing you would have to do to make it fit into that, that 3/4 of a box. That's all done through the technology. And it's just you do your preparation like you would normally do, and everything else just takes care of itself.
Yeah. And what about body language? Is that important?
Oh, body language is huge when you're doing virtual presentation. Even voice inflection is huge. Even now you can see I get excited and I start talking with my hands and the facial expressions that get into play. It's all part of the presentation. What people don't realize when they do presentations is, you're the master of ceremony, right? You're the conductor. People came to your webinar to see and hear you. So you need to be, front and center with them and show off really, whatever you're presenting on. The more visual you are with them, the more likely that, and we all heard this, they know and like and trust you, right? Which is all part of engagement. So the more you can get them engaged, those three things begin to take effect. And I like to add one more in there. To me, it's learned. People have to learn something from you. And you fit that into that equation, and then you really have true engagement.
Right. And so what are some of the other examples of engagements that suck, for lack of a better word?
Engagement that's, I mean, honestly, not even asking a question. I mean, where you're talking for 10 minutes, I mean, there's no engagement there. I mean, at least if people are doing a minimum of, hey, pop into a chat, Windows or an Apple computer, put a yes or a no if you use Windows. At least you're getting the audience to at least put something into chat. Okay.
Yeah.
I mean, there's lots of other ways to get people engaged in your presentation, which we can dive into as well. But ask a question, get some feedback from your audience. A webinar to me is, there's two things presenter is looking for in my mind. And the first thing, if I may, is yes, you want to give information, you want to communicate your message. But the other thing that most presenters don't always do is you have an audience. Get some information from them. Learn about your audience. Learn about the people that are on your presentation. Because that's going to make you a better salesperson if that's what you're doing. You're selling something. And it's going to actually could tailor your presentation and make it more engaging, because now you're learning something about your audience. And maybe I skip a slide or two because I know it's not going to pertain, but my audience isn't really interested in that. That's where if you do a poll or do some questions. It's really great to do that. And you should do it.
And it's easy to do with platforms like Zoom to do that. You just have to, you have to set it up in advance. Isn't that right?
Yeah. I mean, you always have to be able to have an idea of what you want to accomplish and the questions that you want to ask.
Yeah.
Honestly, there's always times that you just have to go with the flow.
Right. Yeah.
And, you have to get that feeling of what your audience is there for, what they're looking for, what their needs are.
Mm-hmm.
The other part of the webinar, it's not what my needs are, really. It's really what the audience's needs is. If you're selling something, a service or a product, or you're doing an update of some sort, addressing the needs of your audience is really is your goal. I mean, I can say lots of things about webinars or lots of things about financial stuff, but, if, for example, in the financial world, you could talk about retirement, but if my audience isn't there for a retirement plan, they're gone.
Yeah. So that's where the opening act and your introduction, the hook for your webinar is important. Can you drill down on that a little bit?
Sure. Your opening hook is, maybe you pose a question right off the bat, or you tell a story right off the bat that gets the people totally engaged in why you were here today. So maybe it's a situation about, I did a webinar, or actually I had to do a live presentation one day, and, which is one of the things I saw early on. And I had to go to Connecticut, and snowed the night before. And I was in, jeans, snow boots. And of course, the next morning I got dressed and wore my sport coat, put my tie on, because it was that formal of a presentation. And then we're looking for my shoes. I forgot to pack my shoes. So I stood behind my podium the entire time. I didn't move because I was conscious of that. And this was early on my career. And then we were on a break, and, I started hearing, hey, this guy's boring. It's death by PowerPoint, so it kind of got me going. And the next day I had to do a virtual presentation. So what I learned from the comments is it's helped me set me up for my future. So you can tell a little story like that, or, you can put up a question in, actually, I like to put questions up on the screen. For example, is what I would ask is, how many webinars do you people put on per month? And I 1 to 10, 11 to 20, 21 to 30, and above 30. So people put into chat with how many webinars you do. Or if you're not doing any, let me know that too. So again, gives you some information about your audience to understand how many they are doing, for example. And yes, these questions are not things that you would ask more than likely, but everyone has questions that they're trying to find out from their audience. But it gives me information about my audience.
Yeah. And in that way, you can skip that slide that's not going to be relevant, and you can fine tune your presentation to what they're interested in finding out.
Correct.
Yeah.
And let's follow the opening act, combine that with a little video, a little music, the globe coming around, and, a little excitement. Again, to make that webinar feel a little different than the other 99% of people that are out there. The other factor, besides the webinar, if I may, it differentiates you and your company versus your competitors.
Yeah.
One of your opening comments was, how do you make your webinars unforgettable? Have impact. And this is how you have impact. This is what makes people remember your presentation versus, John Smith or Harry. More than likely, they're looking elsewhere as well. Of course, that's the nature of the beast these days. They're shopping. People are shopping.
Yeah. So when you mention about putting things up on the screen and having these videos showing up and you're seen with you behind you, how do you pull that off? There's got to be tools, and I'm a tools guy, so I want to know how this is pulled off. I know a little bit, but
the positive tool. It's a great part, people. So the tools that we use is OBS, which is a streaming platform. It's free out there. Everyone can download it and be able to use it. A lot of the gamers out there who are listening are very familiar with OBS.
Yes.
It has those type of graphic capabilities to be able to do some of the things that we do. The other aspect of that, the second piece that we talked about, was the Stream Deck. And I'll just kind of bring the Stream Deck up here real quick, just for the people to kind of take a quick look at it. The 15 button version that I use. And the third piece is what we call our Engage Hub. So first of all, think of the Stream Deck as like favorites on your browser.
Yeah.
Okay. So you have a favorite homepage, you got a favorite, exercise platform, or you have a favorite bank that's across your bar. So you just click on it and it takes you directly there.
Yeah.
Right. Same thing I have on my Stream Deck. So I have a button, that if I want to play music, I can play music. If I want to go live, I click live. If I want to have my PowerPoint up, I click my PowerPoint. If I want to go switch over to my iPad, I can switch over to my iPad. So it's all push button control. And the third piece is our Engage Hub, which is a program that we developed. It helps that provides us the ability to put more things on screen and to capture the chat in Zoom or Teams or other platforms. So for example, someone asks a great question in chat and they see it. Most presenters go, okay, I see a question in chat. Hold on a second. Everybody then takes their eyes, if they're still there, and they try to find that question. So with our platform, all I have to do is I have to just click that question and it shows up on screen.
Right. Like a little bubble.
Yeah, it goes across the screen. And now I can read the question. Everybody can read it themselves, so they see it, they hear it. I mean, everybody who's taken NLP before, neuro-linguistic programming, they always like to hear it and see things, because we all learn differently. So having that ability to be able to bring things on screen, whether it's chat or even that poll that I talked about earlier with a 1 to 10, I can bring that up on screen. People put in A, B, C, or D. I can show the results right on screen.
Is that part of Engage Hub?
I'm sorry?
Is that part of the Engage Hub or is that part of the Zoom polls?
That's all part of the Engage Hub program that we're pulling out.
Uh-huh.
And even if there's sometimes I'll do a quiz. So for your educators out there, that you want to kind of test your audience out there, you can actually ask a question. Paint the Mona Lisa, for example, right? Then you have your 4 choices. People enter the choice in, and you get the results up, and then I hit another button. It shows the right answer. It's highlighted in green. And I can also then reward the person that answered the question first. And that pops up on my screen as well. These are what you call engaging things. This is what keeps your audience engaged.
So it seems to me that practicing doing this presentation would be important. Can you talk about that?
Yeah. Yes, practice is very important. And that's also honestly part of our service. When someone does sign up with us, we train them on changing the scenes, helping them program to make it their presentation, and helping them do a dry run as well with the Stream Deck. I'm from New York, as you might have heard.
No, I thought that was Texas, a Texas accent.
Yeah. There's a joke in New York is, how do you get to Carnegie Hall? Or how do you become a major league ball player? Or how do you become a pro tennis player? It's the same answer. Practice, practice, practice. How do you get to be a great speaker or a great presenter? Practice, practice, practice.
Yeah, you only say that in New York? So I'm interested in the OBS and that whole, just putting that all together. Is that easy to do? I know OBS can be a little daunting because I've looked at it and said, yeah, what comes out of it looks awesome, but diving into it looks kind of daunting.
Yes, OBS can be very daunting. No doubt, no cons about that, no doubts about that. It can be daunting. The advantage of what we provide to our clients is we push out to them really a base of OBS scenes, Engage Hub. So everything I would show on my presentation, for the most part, we provide you as a template. So you don't have to set up all that stuff. You don't have to do all that. It's, what we do with you after it's installed is we tweak it. Like, you don't want the logo Engaging Hub showing up on your presentation, right? You don't want the questions of showing up, how many webinars do you do? So
yeah,
we train you on how to change all that. We help you make it yours. And then we obviously train you on the functionality of the Stream Deck. And the first time, it may not be, 100% perfect that you do your presentation. But like I said earlier, every time you do it, you get better and better. And then your imagination begins to kind of come into play of, wow, what else can I do besides just what was provided there?
Right. So we got some tools. We've got the opening act. We've got the engagement. We've got that down. How important is storytelling and why is that so important?
Storytelling is definitely important these days because people want to be able to relate to an event or to yourself or just something that happened to you in real life. Kind of like I saw in my story of, with my presentation, I forgot my snow boot, I forgot my shoes, or, things of that nature, or I'm in front of 5,000 people or 500 people and I lost my train of thought. I don't know where I was going. What do you do when you're a presenter? Those types of things happens to the best of people, Tony Robbins or even, people like that. Every once in a while, they have those type of situations where something doesn't go the way they want to go. And then they tell that story, maybe in their next webinar or the next presentation, because people it makes you real. It makes you human at the end of the day. You talked about earlier before we got on you know, interviewers had trouble with their internet, kept working it out. Life happens, things happen, technology, things happen. So telling those stories makes you real. It makes you vulnerable, even if you want to really get emotional about things. I mean, even when I say the story, hey, and it's true. I heard someone tell me that I was boring as paint drying on the wall early in my career.
Yeah.
And yeah, it hurt. I mean, you think you're doing a great job and then someone else says something like that. Yeah, it hurts. But, that's kind of what gets me motivated to do better and to figure out things on how to do things differently.
Yeah. When you told your snowstorm story, I was thinking, gosh, I was hoping you were going to say that you took off your shoes or you took off your boots and you were barefoot and you were walking around the stage barefoot. You didn't say anything about it until a little bit later. That would have been funny. Or you could have just went out there and said, yeah, you might be wondering why. And you stick your foot out there and say, wonder why I'm barefoot. Well, funny thing happened to me on the way to the airport. Those kinds of things. Those was great.
Now I would probably, if that happened to me, I would I would do it differently.
Yeah.
When you're younger, you're just kind of even just nervous about doing your own presentation on your own on a topic that you weren't really 100% familiar with. And then that podium was there, which no one should ever really use a podium or stand behind the podium in my mind.
Yeah.
It just became a glue. I got glued there. And that was my comfort factor was hiding.
Yeah. One time I had I was with a company and we had our clients, our vendors, and our employees all there. And I had about Merck, Pfizer, American Airlines, Delta, United. They were all there. And plus the vendors who service them, which is dangerous, could be dangerous, but we did it anyway because that's how we were. And I was showing them how I had a vendor in there who had handheld technology where we could scan the airline's barcode, your luggage tag. And then it showed up blip on the screen, what the status of it was delivered. And we scanned someone in the audience, their tag that they had with them. So it wasn't staged. And there's a story behind it about how he pulled it off, but, and it was all real. And, boom, it came up on the screen. Well, I had the developer discuss how, or, just kind of present how I did the demonstration and I presented, how we came about to it. And he read the slides word for word. It was so boring. I said, man. And this was a high paid guy. And wow, I can't wait for you to stop, and I had to interrupt him. And because we were losing the audience and there was 300 people in the room and they're our biggest clients, that's important. So you got to be careful with that. Another story though, or yeah, go ahead.
To me, there's two transformations that have to happen.
Yeah.
You hit on the other one. So there's two transformations when you're doing a webinar. The first one is the engaging aspect of your audience.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. The other transformation that happens gradually over time is the presenter. The presenter gets more dynamic, more involved, they're more comfortable with the technology. And then the voice and you hit it earlier, the interaction of the body language begins to come into play. And that also gets that audience involved. It gets them engaged because we're not sitting there, oh, hello, let me try to tell you about my slides here today. Or I'm not really reading them because, you're dynamic, you're moving the screen, you're bringing things up. you're watching the people's faces on virtually, and they go, "Wow, this is awesome." I mean, and because nowadays, it's so easy to pick this thing up
Yeah.
and get distracted by your phone and engage in webinar and don't have your audience involved. They check out.
Yeah. Or if you mention something in your presentation, they might go look it up and see if they can find it.
That's
They can find it at a better price.
yeah.
Yeah. This happened to me yesterday. I was doing a live discovery session in person. And I had my I had an agenda for them, which was a client safe agenda. And then I had my notes with my prompts and the questions I needed to ask and some strategy that I wanted to make sure that I covered.
Yeah.
And which is, and so I put my computer to sleep, packed it up, went there. They're right down the street, opened up the computer and it wouldn't start. And I usually just close the cover or shut down my computer. It's a laptop. But to this moment, it still didn't open. So what did I do? I had 3 copies of the, not three copies of the agenda. And I just pulled out that and I said, oh, I'll just work from this. And I went, oh shit, what am I going to do? But I knew my topic well enough and I knew them and I knew what to do. But then I realized that, hey, you mentioned phone. I have OneDrive on my phone. And so I pulled up my notes and I was able to continue. So I had to zig and zag, but it was like, okay, Paul, you don't have to rely on that stuff. And so I think that is something that it should inform our audience that practice makes perfect. It doesn't have to be perfect. You can make mistakes. And I went, oops. And I kind of showed my vulnerability to my clients, which I think helped the whole credibility, the authenticity and all that. And so, again, going back to practicing things, knowing your topic, is important. So how often should you practice? And is it important to get feedback during your practice?
Yes. It's a loaded question. Yes.
Yeah.
Getting practice, getting feedback, getting coaching, have someone coach you on your presentation, whether it's, a friend, a fellow employee, or, someone like myself can provide constructive feedback. Like I said, we're all not perfect and we all have different styles. We all have different ways we say things. To me, one of my favorite expressions, it's not what you say, it's how you say it. And, we all have different ways to say the same thing, basically, but in different fashions. And some things will resonate with people and some things won't. Yes, practice is key. I mean, doing dry runs on your own after you create your PowerPoint or your presentation is vital. You got to understand, when you're in PowerPoint, for example, and you're in presentation mode, click next, what's going to happen? You have animation set up. Did the animation work the way you wanted it to, or you thought it was going to work? Those are the things you have to test before you go live.
Yeah.
Because, to make that smooth.
Yeah. Otherwise you're going to be distracted and you'll lose your place. And I think that's one of the fears that I know that I have, is that I want to make sure that I come off and I make sure that I've asked all the questions that I want to ask and covered all the topics I wanted to cover. And a lot of times I spend time writing that up, but I spend more time on that than I do on practicing and knowing that those nuances of that thing. I might know the topic really well, but there might be a little nuance in there that I need to cover that's important.
Oh. You brought up a point earlier about, with the phones, that you talked about something or you said something that people were going to go look it up.
Yeah.
Right. One of the techniques that I would recommend for you, for example, or any of our listeners, because I want to provide value here as well, is that if you got a question that you're going to reference something or reference a book or reference a link, instead of putting it into chat or say it right off the bat. I mean, a great response would be, you know what, Paul, I love that question. I'm going to park it for the moment. Okay, so parking it just puts it off to the side into a parking lot in my mind. And I'd like someone in the audience to remind me to come back before we end today for me to answer the question and I'll put it into chat. Because I want to be able to stay on track and I want to be able to get through our content on a timely basis. So either I make myself a little note, I just write it down here, and I move on to my presentation and I don't get sidetracked, I don't get derailed. So parking questions is a technique that would help a lot of presenters stay on point and not lose their audience as well.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about tools, but one thing we didn't mention was lighting and sound and looking into the camera. I'm looking at you because you're a little square on my screen, and instead of looking at the camera, because I'm still training myself to do that. But what are some recommendations on lighting and audio? Because I know audio is super important.
Yes, they're both super important for sure. Not talking from a dark room, where no one can see you, have lights on. And if you are in a dark room, get one of the ring lights that you can purchase, on Amazon for honestly, probably for around 25 bucks even, just to get some light on you. And then, they're adjustable. I mean, I have a couple lights here, as you can see. I can, play with things to make it lighter or darker. Now that I just played around with that. And the other aspect of things is, yes, you hit it, is looking at the camera. The other, I'll throw one more item here, if I may, is people tend to put their laptop on their desk and then the camera is looking up at them.
Yeah, not good. Not a good look.
Yeah, not a good look. Yeah. So you want to have your eyes about 3/4 into the Zoom room or into the picture that's displaying. You don't want to down here and you and you also don't want to be up on the top where everyone's looking at you like this. Okay. You want to be able to be square, head out straight on. And if people say, well, there's no way to raise my camera or my laptop, go get a shoe box.
Yeah.
Get a box and just lift it up. It'll do wonders for you, just from your own presentation and your own look and style. You don't need to go buy anything fancy. A shoebox more than likely will be sufficient from a height perspective.
I was up north vacationing, and I had two podcast recordings that day, and I had my laptop, and I had that same problem, and so and I was actually borrowing my sister-in-law's place, and she had a bunch of board games, so I stacked up these games on top of one another until I had the camera at a decent level. So I improvised, and then it was funny because I took a snapshot of that setup and put it on the internet on my Facebook just before we went live, just to let people know that I was about to interview Jim Palmer or David Brown or whoever I was interviewing, and I got a lot of engagement online and just from showing that wacky setup. So I still have that picture, but you improvise when you have to.
I've been in hotels where I've used milk crates to pull up my laptop a little higher so I could see the screen, even though I'm not standing behind there. But last thing you want to do is start looking down, for things. And live presentations, you do one thing. Virtual presentations, you do something different. But at the end of the day, it's all about keeping the audience engaged, keeping them focused.
Yeah, and some of these tips too will transfer over to a live presentation for sure, especially with the hook and just getting them engaged and asking them questions and parking topics and things like that. What about Q&A?
I always recommend Q&A. I also recommend it really if you have an hour of time. Some presenters will take Q&A as they go along. And there's pros and cons to doing that. My recommendation is to leave 10, 15 minutes or so at the end. Get through your content, get through what you want to do from a content perspective. Questions, honestly, could take you down a rabbit hole
Yeah.
that you don't really want to go to, but if you open it up for the questions, and then you really feel you're obligated to, answer them. Because if in your opening you go, hey, I'll take questions while we go through our presentation, you can either answer it or you can do that talking technique, as I mentioned, if you don't want to talk about it right now.
Yeah.
You can't talk, every question.
Yeah.
Okay. That just
Well,
does.
some politicians do.
Yeah.
They never answer the question.
And they never answer the question.
Yeah.
So I would recommend preferably you leave 10, 15 minutes at the end. People will never be mad at you if you ended a presentation 5 minutes, 10 minutes early.
Yeah.
If you don't have a whole lot of questions. Typically, people's calendars are so booked these days that if you think you're going to run 5 minutes or 10 minutes late, you're going to start seeing people drop off.
Yeah.
Managing your time on the webinar, whether you're live or in virtual situations, is also key. And then there's always the situation where you think you have 45 minutes and then, someone says, all right, we're running late. You got 20 minutes.
Yeah. Then you got to condense it. They don't tell you until you started.
Exactly.
Yeah. One thing I want to ask you about, and we're starting to run out of time. Speaking of time, was the call to action. But before we dive into that, I think everyone knows what a call to action is. It should be specific. It should be time bound. It should be, you probably have some comments. We can get to those in a minute. But when you're done with your presentation, you should have a call to action. If you're selling something or if you want them to take an action, you're on here for a reason, whether it's to download a resource or to schedule a call or whatever it might be. But then when you do your Q&A, doesn't that kind of dilute that call to action? Don't you have to come back to the call to action to remind them what to do? How do you handle that?
Well, typically my call to action I would do prior to my Q&A.
Yeah.
Okay. So I would typically go through, and there's two calls. So sometimes people will do two things from a call to action perspective. One, they'll give a PDF or go to my website, download this, this tips and tricks. And that's a great call to action. Okay. And why it's great is because one of the ultimate goals of a presentation, especially if you're doing sales or you're doing something like that, is you want to capture your audience's name and email.
Right.
So if nothing else, you're getting that, you're building your database, and you hopefully be able to market to them as you move forward.
And they're showing interest in that topic.
And they're showing it. A very good point. Thank you for bringing that up.
Yeah.
That's one, ultimate goal in my mind is, if nothing else, to get their name and email. Okay. And yes, at the end of the day, you want to make a sale. If at the end of the day, or sometimes your call to action is just book an appointment.
Yeah.
So if you are, depending on what that call to action is, you got to make it easy for the person to do both. Okay. So you either got to be able to be prepared to put a link into chat or have the link on the screen.
On the screen or both.
To see it.
Yeah.
So that way, again, it's visual. And then, if you have someone that can put it into chat, do it. Yes, it's going to take them away. That's okay. They're taking action on what you want them to take action on, because it's involving you and your product and your service.
Right. And that's when you can transition into your Q&A. But
Correct.
My question was, do you remind them of the call to action after the Q&A is finished?
At the end, I would go, hey, remember the call to actions? I'd go back to that last slide before I sign off with the call to actions. So it's a call to action with on the slide, my Q&A, and then I would duplicate that slide again at the end and just, hey, as a reminder,
yeah,
let's work together. Here's your download. Here's your You want to book an appointment or you like to purchase, looking forward
Yeah,
to
and I suppose on the Q&A slide, you could have the Q&A title and then the details of your call to action with a URL on it while you're taking Q&A. You could do that too.
Yes, that too. Good point.
Yeah. So I love this topic. I wish we could go longer. I think we've gone over an hour. So I appreciate that. Is there anything else that before we wrap up with your final words, is there anything else that we didn't cover that you'd like to mention?
Boy, we covered opening act. I think the last bit that I'll cover, and I'll keep it short, is when you're thinking about your slides.
Mm-hmm.
If I may make a recommendation, don't make them busy. Don't make them crowded. Make them as bullets. I see slides where there's, there are complete sentences on the slides, or they have these tremendous graphs and charts, and you just can't read them. The idea of a slide is a bullet point that reminds you, the presenter, of the topic that you want to talk about.
Yeah. What about graphics and images on that? Do you do those, or you can do images instead of bullets?
Yeah, you can do images. Something graphical is fine. But again, keep them simple. Don't make them overwhelming. Don't make them complex. Because you're just going to lose the interest of the people when they're trying to figure out, what am I looking at?
Well, they're just going to read it. And they're going to be mad at you because what am I listening to you for? You just gave me what you're going to say.
Exactly.
So that's boring.
I didn't come here to someone to read to me the slides that are in front of me.
Yeah. So Jeff, it's been a great conversation. I appreciate it. Before we go with your final words, what are 3 things that our listeners and viewers can do to put these absolute fabulous ideas into action?
Ask questions. Your presentations, make your slides simple, and be passionate about your product or your service while you're doing your presentations. There's 3 simple items to be able to implement in your next webinar. There's no special tools or techniques or anything you have to go out to do those things. It's just really get your audience engaged.
Fabulous. And you mentioned OBS, which is Open Broadcast Studio, I think it's called.
Software.
Yeah, software.org. OBS.org, I think, is where you can get it for free. And of course, Zoom, we all know how to get that. Stream Deck is a product by Elgato, and they make fabulous lights and stream decks and teleprompters and
all sorts of things,
cameras and stands and everything, which I love Elgato. It means cat, but they're a German company, which is interesting. So, and you also have a free book that it's called Mastering the Art of Engaging Webinars, correct?
Correct.
And you can get that at www.engagingwebinars.com. That's www.engagingwebinars.com. And as we sign off, remember, faith and action go hand in hand. So keep the pedal to the metal. Until next time on the Lead Machine Growth Show, I'm Paul Guyan, and Jeff Brandeis. Thank you so much, my brother. I appreciate it.
Thanks for having me, Paul. It was great.
Thank you.
Thank you for tuning in to the Lead Machine Growth Show with Paul Guyan, where we show you how to tackle your tech, master your message, and design your dream so that you can transform your vision into reality. Remember to visit our website at www.leadmachinegrowthshow.com and enjoy even more great episodes like this one. Again, while you're here, subscribe to us via your favorite network. We look forward to seeing you next time on the Lead Machine Growth Show.